we tried throwing a party in an abandoned cabin in the woods. By Mr. Outlaw. When all the stars align. A saying that typically implies that something impossibly good has transpired. That all the twists and turns present in day-to-day life just happen to lead you down all the right paths. That's kind of what happened here. Just the opposite. Now, everybody loves going to those house parties, but hosting them is another story. When the uninvited dipshits start showing up and wreaking havoc on your mum's antique vase collection, that's when you typically begin realizing your mistake. We all wanted to party, but nobody wanted to host. We didn't feel like going to some rando's party either. Just not the same that way. So, when Jason started talking about a decently sized cabin in the woods that seemed to be abandoned, we were intrigued. Of course, we were all skeptical despite the fact. What if somebody actually owned it? If it was really abandoned, then it must mean it's got to be pretty shitty, right? How deep in the woods was it? We weren't trying to get lost either. But when we took the trip out there ourselves, the place couldn't have been more perfect. It was only an 8-minute walk into a nearby wooded area. The only thing that worried us here was the fact that it wasn't an explicit trail leading to it. But we dealt with that by making our own artificial trail by cutting through the foliage. The place was also nice. A little dusty inside, but nothing unbearable. There was even electricity. Well, that was the concerning part. I mean, somebody had to own it, right? Even so, Jason claimed that he hadn't seen anybody enter or leave during the time he'd come across it. In fact, the door was always unlocked. It was still hard to take his word for it, obviously. The whole situation seemed to be a bit strange, but since we're idiotic teenagers, we underestimated just how strange things could really get. We didn't simply leave it at that. We decided to scout the place over the course of a week, in an attempt to determine whether or not it was truly abandoned. If it truly was just there for the taking. Sure enough, a week passed and nothing interesting happened. Nobody even approached the place. However, this brought up the frightening possibility that somebody was already living in there. This idea was somewhat combated by the fact that we already entered the place a few times and caused a reasonable ruckus, so it would have made sense that the owner, if they were there, would have confronted us already. In any case, it was still a cause for concern. We argued about how to deal with this, eventually deciding that someone had to go in and simply sweep all the rooms. The conventional response was something along the lines of, "Fuck that, I don't want to run into some weird-ass guy in there." But we eventually managed to convince each other to go in. During the middle of the day, the 5 of us went in together. As it turns out, every room was empty. Well, except for one. The door to what had to be a closet of some sort was locked, so we ignored it. Rookie mistake, I know. There are a few other peculiar things about the house itself, though. 1, there was only one painting framed up, which looked to be some kind of shadowy figure standing outside a window. 2, there was a straight-up hole that was about 2 inches in diameter in the basement. We tried looking into it, but it was just darkness. 3, there was a heavy locked box inside one of the rooms upstairs, contents obviously unknown. In the same room, there was also an older banged-up Android phone, which was out of battery. 4, the TV worked, but there was only one obscure channel, which was just constant footage of a faint light illuminating what appeared to be a wall and a bedpost. 5, and finally, there was a rocking chair in the living room that was stuck tight to the ground. Reasonable people would have considered these circumstances and noped out of there on the spot. But as I've already established, we were dumbass kids trying to get our party on. Nothing was stopping us. We scouted the house for a few more days before finally making our move. We each called up numerous mutual friends, informing them about the plan. They were excited, of course. We were all excited. We planned on having about 20 people in total. We had slivers of common sense, after all. We didn't want to invite hundreds and risk causing a forest fire or something like that. The day that the party was supposed to take place, we got there early and began setting everything up, which was basically just music, chips, and beer. The good party is bare bones, after all. No need for a disco ball and a buffet, just alcohol, weed, and good company. We also tried hooking up an Xbox to the TV, but we couldn't get it to work. The channel stayed the same no matter what we did. Although, in retrospect, I did notice that the light seemed to be getting brighter. We told everybody to come at around 8 PM, and we finished setting up around 7. Since we had an hour to kill with just the 5 of us, we cracked open some beers, rolled a few joints, and got the night started. At some point, our buddy Boris brought out something that looked like a Ouija board. "Come on, we gotta try it," he said, sounding excited. The only other person on board with the idea was Max, so we let them go at it whilst the rest of us continued getting intoxicated. About 10 minutes later, Jason went to the washroom, leaving Chris and I alone. We looked over that peculiar rocking chair. "What's the point of sticking this shit to the ground?" Chris said. He walked over and peered down. "Is it glue or some shit? I can't tell." He inspected it for a few more minutes, before getting into the chair himself and rocking back and forth. "Man, I haven't been in one of these for a while." Then his face dropped. We both came to the realization simultaneously. He got off the chair, and it immediately stopped moving. We tried moving it again, while standing, but it wouldn't budge. His face contorted in confusion. "What?" "Oh, come on!" Max's outburst interrupted our thoughts. We looked over, watching as he held up the Ouija board. "What kind of board is this? It's not even in English." I took a look at it myself, and he was right. On first glance, the characters appeared to be the letters of the alphabet, but all of them were slightly off. For example, the A had 2 lines through it. "I swear it was fine when I bought it." Boris looked at the board, his face also sporting confusion. "Well, where'd you buy it? At some moving away sale?" "Guys," I said as I checked the time on my phone. "It's 8:40. Where the hell is everybody?" They all looked up, checking their phones as well. "All right," Max said. "I'm gonna call Erin, see where she's at." He dialed the number and walked into the kitchen whilst the 3 of us stood still, a vague dread looming over us. I looked at the stationary chair and shivered. As far as I was concerned, weed and alcohol didn't cause hallucinations. Jason came back into the room, now holding up a book. "Check this out," he said, opening it up. It looked comparable to a children's pop-up book, with crudely drawn animals and trees materializing themselves on top of the pages. "What about it?" Chris asked. "Look," Jason said, pointing to the space in between the 2 trees. I squinted, making out what appeared to be a large grey hand coming out of the dark woods, grabbing onto a branch. "Dude, what the hell?" Chris said, staring at this bizarre detail. "Alright, this doesn't make any sense." Max stormed back into the room. "Erin said that she arrived 20 minutes ago. Then she let out this weird fucking laugh and hung up." Before we could even react to that, Boris spoke up. Guys? I can't move my hand." His hand was firmly planted on the board. "Quit fucking around," Max said, somewhat angrily. "I'm serious, man," Boris responded, his voice increasingly frantic. "I can't deal with this shit right now," Chris said, pacing around the room. I was feeling something similar. There were too many things happening simultaneously. Too many storylines to follow. It was frustrating. As if things couldn't get any worse, I glanced over to the television, which had been on the entire time. The light had illuminated further, revealing the source to be a candle, but it revealed something else as well. A hand, dangling over a bed. "Jesus," I started, but was interrupted again by Boris. He was still screaming about the damn board. We looked over, watching as his finger moved across the letters. "Fucking hell!" Max shouted, slapping the board out of his hands. Or at least, And that's what he tried to do. Just like the chair on the floor, Boris's hand was actually stuck. Max staggered back, shocked at the sight. This can't be happening. His phone suddenly rang again, and he answered it quickly. Hello? A faint chattering could be heard on the other line. As he listened, his face grew paler and paler. He put the phone down a few seconds later. It was Erin. She said that everybody's in the attic. That we should join them up there. Does this place even have a fucking attic? Chris shouted. Oh, thank God. Boris breathed a sigh of relief as he finally managed to unstick his hand from the board. That was weird. It spelled out a message, right? What was it? Yeah, I wasn't paying attention. Too busy freaking the fuck out. This is pretty weird, Jason muttered, his eyes still glued on the pop-up book. Maybe these were just some side effects from some bad weed, I thought to myself, despite the fact that I felt effectively sober. In hindsight, that was simply a delusion spurred on by this chain of unexplainable events. Where the hell did Max go? We looked around, and sure enough, he was absent. For a while, nobody spoke. We were nearing our tipping point with all the madness going on, after all. All right, Chris said. You've heard the stories, right? Carbon monoxide makes you loopy and shit. You see things that aren't really happening. If that's the case, then we need to get the hell out of here. What? I responded. How does that explain? But before I could finish my sentence, he hightailed it past me right out the front door. I went after, screaming at him to get the hell back. He ran all the way to the edge of the trees before stopping. Look, man, if it was the gas, I think we'd all be dead by now, I called after him. But then something caught my eye. Something in between the two trees. A large grey hand coming out of the dark woods. I raised my voice, ready to yell at him to get the hell back. But it was snatched away before I could utter a vowel. Oh shit! I yelled out, before bolting back inside and locking the door behind me. But truth be told, I wasn't so confident about our safety inside the house either. What the hell's he doing? Boris asked. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I sat down, attempting to make sense of any of this. But I couldn't. Everything was fucked. Wait, Jason said. You hear that? Everybody went quiet, trying to discern what he was referring to. Eventually, it became obvious. There was some kind of mumbling coming from down in the basement. That must be Max, Jason said. It seemed like an obvious explanation, but with everything that was going on, I had to be skeptical. Eventually, the three of us decided to head down, just to confirm. Sure enough, Max was there, mumbling whilst kneeling down. He was also transfixed, staring into the hole in the floor. I approached him and strained my ears, trying to figure out what he was saying. Yeah, okay. I'll kill them. I will. Yeah, they're right behind me. I'll do it now. Oh shit, I thought to myself. Out of all of us that could have gotten possessed, it had to be the guy who practiced kickboxing. Max turned around and I winced upon seeing his eyes roll all the way back, now displaying nothing but white. I tried running back upstairs, but he charged me, sweeping my legs. What the hell are you doing? Boris yelled at him, but his words didn't register. Max rushed him as well before delivering a devastating kick to the ribs. Oh shit, Jason stammered out as he himself squared up. That turned out to be a bad move as he was dropped in a single punch. I looked over at the hole, which now had an eyeball stalk coming out of it. The sight of that put my fight-or-flight response into overdrive. While I was distracted, I kicked Max's legs, causing him to stumble. I lifted myself up before making a beeline to the stairs. I could hear Jason and Boris following close behind. Once the three of us got up, we blocked the door with a couch. As Max began trying to tear it down moments later, we decided that enough was enough. Let's get the fuck out of this place! Nobody argued with that proposition, so we packed up what we could and headed for the door. but things wouldn't be that simple. As I was about to begin sprinting, I noticed the painting from earlier, the one with the shadowy figure stalking a window. Oh, please don't, I thought. My eyes began moving back towards the only window in the living room. Sure enough, the shadow man was right there, staring at me. A dark body with two bright white eyes. "What are you doing, man? Let's go!" Jason said, holding his nose, which was gushing blood. I gestured towards the window in response. Fuck. Moments later, Max's arm burst through the door. "Well, I'll take my chances anyway," Boris said, pushing past me and heading right out the door. About a second and a half later, we heard a blood-curdling scream that was abruptly cut short. A deep guttural chuckling followed. I bounded over to the door and locked it again, only to turn around and see Max's head bursting through the door like Jack fucking Torrance from The Shining. He said something along the lines of, "There will be nothing when the old ones descend upon this cursed earth." However, since it was Max, I found it hard to take it seriously. In any case, Jason and I realized that we were pretty much screwed if we didn't act fast. We both tried weighing our options. While Max was slowly breaking through, it looked like it was going to be a while before he got out completely. Max had left his phone, and it was being bombarded with texts from Erin. Most of them said something along the lines of, "If you don't come to us, then we'll come to you." For that reason, we were hesitant about escaping upstairs. But that hesitation changed once Jason pointed out something horrifying. "Dude, the door's open." The door he was referring to was the one that had been locked the first few times we tried opening it. I also noticed what was now on the TV. It was us. Jason and I, both looking shit scared, seemingly being filmed from behind the door that had been cracked open just slightly. We looked back towards the door in question, seeing a hand wrapped in barbed wire now slither its way out. In the meantime, Max's full upper body was through. We didn't want to go upstairs, but the choice evidently wasn't up to us. We sprinted towards the stairs, locking and pushing the bed against the door. Our logic operated on the idea that if a couch couldn't hold back Max, then maybe a bed would, right? Luckily for us, there wasn't some additional demon waiting for us. However, we did happen to be in the room that contained the phone and the locked box. And that's where we've been ever since. I think we got a bit lucky, though. It sounded like both Max and whatever had been hiding in the locked room came out at the same time and became preoccupied with each other. I called the cops just before getting out my phone and trying to type this out. It's been quite a while now, and there's no way in hell that I'm going downstairs. Doesn't look like Jason wants to either. Looks like we'll just stay here for now. The shadowy figure is now outside our window, and we can hear stomping and laughing coming from the floor above us, even though I'm pretty sure that there is no floor above us. This is going to be a long fucking night. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. And if you're an animal lover like me, please consider donating to the World Land Trust, a charity that aims to help wildlife through buying land, preventing development, and helping endangered species.